Welcome back. I want to turn to a broader tableau for our next block with one of the most brilliant strategic thinkers I know. He is a very accomplished author and essayist, including in outlets like Newsmax and Epoch Times. His name is J.R. Nyquist. You can also find his body of work at jrnyquist.blog. Among his books is the most recent one, The Fool and His Enemy, Towards the Metaphysics of Evil. You can follow, as I do, at J.R. Nyquist. It's good to have you with us, Jeff, especially because I'm anxious to get your thoughts on how, knowing them as you do, the Chinese communists are perceiving the President of the United States and his senior subordinates in this new Biden-Harris administration. Welcome back to Securing America.
Yeah, well, of course, the Chinese are always trying to get you to buy their deception because, you know, when China was really influencing strategy both in throughout the communist bloc in the 1950s, the Russians published Sun Tzu's Art of War. And Sun Tzu said that deception is the key to the art of war. And the key thing is to make sure you have a gullible enemy. Make sure that your enemy accepts what you say is true. So if the Chinese say this is true or that is, and we accept it, we're going along with their deception because they don't present themselves as they are. They don't come and say, well, we want to destroy you. We want to become the leading military power in the world, or economic power.
Well, they're being deceptive because it does work. People that they have previously deceived, I think it's fair to say, and in some cases actually compromised more materially, are now in senior ranks of the U.S. government. And I just want to ask you specifically as an example, Jeff, how would the Chinese, whatever they might manifest, how would they likely be perceiving through their prism, their communist doctrine, their traditions, the evident weakness of the Biden administration, for example, with respect to the genocide that the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in and was properly called out for by Mike Pompeo before the Trump administration left office? We're hearing from the Biden people, well, it was genocide back in that period, and nothing really is different in terms of their behavior, but they're reluctant, they're refusing actually to say the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in ongoing genocide against the Uyghur Muslims and other ethnic minorities in Western China.
This is an essential thing for China. They have to get us to stop looking at them morally. The big difference between the West and the East generally is that the West developed its military institutions around the idea of chivalry. And all of our political institutions have morality in them. The Chinese tradition is completely the opposite. The first Qin emperor was a follower of the legalist school. That was a school that said, oh, morality is just vain words. You know, you want to just win. It's all about power and winning. And that is definitely the way the communist regime in China now sees things. And their idea, they don't want to be beholden to any moral rules because they don't follow any. They don't believe in any. And
so would they have contempt for those who do? And would they be, again, I think, emboldened by the perception that we are so weak that we are indulging in morality?
Well, the thing is the Mike Pompeo and the Trump administration gave them hell, you could say, over their behavior. And this was really constricting them, was threatening them. The idea that we could actually look at them through moral glasses is something they don't want us to do. Because they are not about to conform to our moral thinking. Yeah. And it's something that people on the left have to really think about. I mean, you guys have, on the left, moral precepts, supposedly. How are you going to bend
human
those
rights
and justify
among
those?
them?
Yeah. I mean, if you were saying that Trump was a dictator and Xi Jinping is not a dictator, is not committing genocide, that's a double standard. That's really horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Jeff, to the larger point, if you do see this kind of, shall we say, backing and filling by the administration on the genocide charge by the previous administration, and you see them similarly, taking steps like delaying the sale of Harpoon defensive systems to Taiwan at a moment when the Chinese are intensifying the threats to that island. And you see them not being held accountable by the Biden administration for the COVID pandemic, which they unleashed on us. Wouldn't the practical effect of all of that be for cynical Chinese Communist Party leaders that this is a moment to strike, or at least to intensify their aggressive behavior?
Well, they see themselves in the home stretch. They're looking at first of all, the U.S. nuclear arsenal is rotting away. It's reaching the end of its shelf life. And the head of the Strategic Command gave testimony a year ago last month. And he said, look, if you guys don't give us any additional help, we're going to have a break between 2023 and 2009 where we're not going to have any reliable nuclear warheads.
Wow.
The Chinese know this. Chinese government knows it. They're looking at this present administration as an opportunity to see the United States fail as a military power in such a way that then the sky's the limit for them. They can do anything they want once they believe we're sufficiently weak and that we don't have a reliable deterrent, and that we will then have to give in to them on everything.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I want to go to with you after a short break coming up here momentarily, Jeff, is what is the Biden administration doing to the United States military that may be, communicating, telegraphing exactly that, to the Chinese Communist Party? Again, the worry here being that they would simply be emboldened if they feel our deterrent is not credible, is not reliable. And I want to visit with you about both what we're doing to the military first, but also what kinds of things that might flow from such a calculation by the Chinese for, our friends and allies really in places like Taiwan and other parts of the Western Pacific, and indeed for our own people and the security of our nation. Because what the Chinese have in mind, as you have talked about on this program and elsewhere often, is, of course, taking us out. And without war, if they can get away with it, but if necessary, through the use of violence. We'll talk about the United States military and more with Jeff right after this.